Let's get started. So thanks for attending our School of Commerce webinar series. This is our second School of Commerce lesson. Our first one, if you were here with us, was talking about selling with video commerce. So I'm going to repeat what I talked about in the first one in regards to why we are working on School of Commerce. So last year we did our Black Friday University series throughout the holiday season where we taught our customers and store owners on Shopify how they can increase sales in their Shopify store. We had such a great response from that we are continuing that throughout the entire year. So every second Thursday, with a few exceptions where we might shift the date around a little bit, we're going to be talking about a different topic related to your online store and how it can help you make more money. We're going to have, throughout the year, we're going to have features, we're going to have interviews. We actually have our upcoming lesson is going to be an interview, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But like I said, this is going to be going all year long. Second thing I want to note is we are going to have a live Q&A after this webinar ends. So if you have any questions as we're talking about this week's topic, please just submit your questions right away. We'll get back to them at the very end, and then we can answer them for you. And if you, of course, forget your question and you have questions afterwards, you always can reach out to our support team. So I'm excited. Our second lesson for the School of Commerce is talking about return policies and how they can increase your sales. We all know how return policies can obviously decrease your sales, because literally a return policy is somebody's returning the product and you have to give them back their money. But the return policy, not many store owners use this, but it can actually be used as a sales tactic. So today with us, we're going to be talking with Graeme Matheson. He's one of our support specialists here. He's very familiar with our returns manager app, as well as just the general strategy of using your return policy to your advantage. One thing I just want to say, just to kind of get us on the right note, is I just want to talk for a second about Costco. For those of you who don't have Costco's around where you live, Costco is a wholesale retailer in Canada and the US, I believe. I'm not sure if it's anywhere else. They have been known for quite a few different things. They sell everything in bulk, but primarily they're known for having an insane return policy. They let you literally return pretty much anything. I've heard of people taking back computers 5 years after they bought them because they've slowed down and they want their money back. I've heard of people returning things that are used clothing that they wore 5 times and they just decide it doesn't look good on them anymore. The reason why a lot of people buy from Costco, besides pricing and available products, is the fact that they have an amazing return policy. Customers go to Costco knowing that if they buy something and they don't like it, they're going to be able to return it, and they're going to feel comfortable walking in the store and asking for that. They're not going to feel uncomfortable. They're not going to feel like they're going to be asked a ton of questions before they're giving their money back. So this draws a lot of people into Costco because a lot of other retailers have return policies that have a lot of small print, and they also have policies put in place that makes returning items difficult. So really, the return policy kind of becomes user hostile at that point, where they don't want you to take advantage of the return policy, so they're going to make it as hard as possible for you to return something. And if you're a customer and you're looking at buying something from one of those retailers, you maybe don't feel as comfortable making the purchase because, frankly, you're not sure if you can return it, and you don't want to have to go through all those loops and jump over those hurdles to get your money back. So I wanted to just leave you guys with that note, because that is something that I feel is truly valuable about a return policy, is that it can actually be your friend. It doesn't have to be your enemy. It doesn't have to be the policy that loses you money. It can actually be a marketing tool for you to gain more sales. With that being said, I'm going to now pass this over to Graeme. So like I said, we're going to be accepting Q&As throughout the entire webinar. So I'm just going to make sure here we have no sound issues. Well, so that looks like we're great. So I'm going to pass it over to Graeme now, and he's going to talk you through return policies.
So welcome to the webinar, everyone. As Kevin so graciously introduced us, returns management in and of itself can be a somewhat dubious thing for a lot of people, as you mentioned, with the sheer expenses that come along with returning of products. That can really throw a lot of store owners off, especially when your profit margin can be somewhat thin. What we're hoping with this webinar is that it will hopefully provide a little bit of insight and allow you to embrace the returns management of your store and turn a solid return policy into a positive and effective marketing tool for your store. We are firm believers that a good return policy combined with friendly and helpful communication, both pre and post purchase, can result in long-lasting and loyal customer relationships, which can really be a strong marketing tool in and of itself. And in that sense, it is also cost efficient as well, hopefully returning the investment that you spend with the return policy. So through this webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about a few elements related to returns. We're also going to dive a little bit into our Returns Manager app. What you're looking at on the screen right now is my own test store, and you can see what our returns widget looks like, and we'll expand on that a little bit as we go. To begin, I'd like to give a bit of a brief kind of overview of some of the negative stigmas and negative return elements for store owners. And we talked about a little bit off the top, the negative effect on sales. Obviously, just in general, you're replacing, you're refunding, you're issuing a credit for a product that you have already sold to a customer, and now you're losing that investment. At the same time, transportation is a huge issue. The shipping costs can be very, very steep for a lot of these products, but if you as the store owner are covering the cost of shipping, or if you are working out some sort of arrangement with the customer as a result of the refund request. We find that a lot of these things, if handled poorly, can result in really bad customer experience. And that kind of customer experience is what will lose you a customer for the long term. What we want to try and do is influence you to embrace your returns management, and so that the customer experience is enough to retain that customer long term. Returned items in general, they take inventory space, they have carrying costs. There are all kinds of hurdles that you need to go over once taking in a return, but the type of effect that you can have to please that customer just with a solid return policy can result in much better sales. We've heard of a lot of stores over the course of time, a lot of businesses that have what some people might deem to be a bit of a ludicrous return policy. As Kevin mentioned, Costco. When you think about Costco, a lot of what they do in terms of a business plan is really effective because of the wholesale sales that they make are encouraging people to buy in bulk. With the fact that they have a great return policy, what they're doing in turn is replacing any kind of risk for purchasing that product. Normally, if you went to a store without that kind of return policy, you might have a little bit of fear that you're spending a lot of money on a large product or a wholesale bulk product, and you might have fear that you can't return it if it is not quite functional the way you expect it to be. So because Costco has that kind of return policy in place, they're able to lower the risk of purchasing products from their stores, specifically more expensive products, which in turn, if they work out, that profit margin becomes much higher. So some of what we talk about in terms of a strategy to make a return a positive thing is that a strong and flexible return policy displayed on your storefront, and we're kind of speaking specifically to e-commerce in this particular case, on your storefront, on your website, making it clear what your return policy is definitely lowers the risk for the customer, and it becomes a sales motivator. It encourages purchases, knowing full well, you know what, maybe I wouldn't normally buy shoes online because they might not fit. With a good return policy, you really give them a cushion to say, okay, maybe we can spend the money on these shoes, knowing full well if they don't fit, we can just send them back, get a replacement, that kind of thing. And that is a really positive customer experience. Part of that becomes how you're going to deal with communication. Obviously, clear communication is effective and is really a focus of a lot of stores. But when it comes to returns, it definitely is better to be more transparent about how your return policy is going to be handled. The most information that the customer can have results in the fact that they are settled in, they're comfortable, they're in touch, and they know how their return is going to be processed. Risk-free purchases, like we mentioned before, are things that really can motivate sales. And we see this a lot in, there's a lot of subscription boxes going out with clothing and that kind of thing, where you're sending monthly shirts, and maybe you don't necessarily have any choice in the matter. They're just going to send you a box. But if you have a good return policy, you can send those shirts that don't fit back, the ones that aren't necessarily your style, but you have a subscription, a really a long-lasting customer already with that subscription product. And that in and of itself is a huge deal in e-commerce so far, is the subscription-based kind of user. So having that return policy really motivates people to use that type of purchase method. Effective returns management is always something that's going to create loyal customers, long-lasting relationships. And what you get in a lot of times with that type of customer experience is that they are going to basically offer you free marketing with their word of mouth recommendations, saying, you know what, hey, I got this great subscription box, or I bought this pair of shoes online, knowing full well that if it didn't fit or I didn't like them, I could send it back, no cost to me. I still get a pair of shoes that I really like in the end. And that type of marketing that comes from word of mouth, that comes from just the positivity of your return policy alone, can really augment your sales and also replace any sort of negative sales effects that you could have just from the return itself. So that hopefully can come full circle in a lot of cases when you have an effective returns policy. So what we have a little bit here is our Returns Manager app. It is an effective tool for helping process returns. It gives you basically exactly what it says, a method of managing your returns. It's really basic. It has not much of an install. You just have to install the widget itself, which you're looking at here. That is also quite basic. The process is very clear and easy to follow. So if you do have the Returns Manager app, you can go to the Getting Started section, and it's just a simple script that you have to copy and paste into a page which you generate through your store. So you see here, there's just a simple line of code. You can copy that, put it into a page through the source code, as you can see I've done here, and that's how you generate your returns widget. So it's really basic, and what that does right away is open up an area of your storefront to not only house your return policy with a really easy couple of techniques, and right away you can see the impact where you've been transparent with your storefront. People can access the information they want to know about your return policy. And not only that, but they can look up what their order might have been that they want to search for. So I'm just going to do a quick search for an order here just to give you a little bit of an insight on what the process looks like. And so here is the order summary with the returnable groups, and we'll go into that a little bit later on. All it does is tell you the customer name, the purchase date, the product itself, and it gives you an option to create a return, gives you a modal with all these, a variety of selection choices, refunds, return reasons. We will talk about those as well as we go, as those can be very effective tools for how you're going to manage your refund or your return. So one of the things, we've talked about the widget. The app itself has a variety of different tools involved in it. One of them is return groups. And return groups is basically where you are going to designate which products you have for return, what type of policy you might have for those groups of products. So you may have a variety of products on your store that might not all follow the same return groups. So you can set different policies for different things throughout the process. Right now, I've just kind of created a very basic one. We've used a store-wide, and we've added all our products. And through this, you can see there's little checkboxes to check off in the app itself can this product be returned for a credit? Can it be returned for a refund? Can it be returned for a replacement? And what you'll see when the customer goes through the process of submitting their refund request through the widget on the storefront is that these notes here will be passed along. And so what I've done with this is provide a little information on how the return itself will be handled by the store, right away giving people an idea of what is going to be used to process their refund. So in this case, I'm choosing to do a store credit by manually issuing a discount code through the Shopify discount codes. So using the tools at hand through Shopify, combining them with the app, I've increased the transparency of what my policy is and how they are going to receive their refund. And refunds, same sort of thing. We're just going to refund the purchase itself through Shopify by refunding directly through the same gateway that the order was purchased with. In replacements, we're going to use the Shopify custom orders and generate a new order with all the new products in it and send that along to the customer. So right away, what we're doing is providing a variety of different details for this product, increasing transparency, making sure the customer is in touch, all concepts that we've touched on so far here in this webinar. You can determine some rules as well if you'd like. To generate whether, maybe this is only a refund only type of product. We're only going to offer credit, that kind of thing. So be sure to use the product selector tools. You can use individual product selectors. You can select by collections, by type, by vendor, or just the whole store, which I've done in this case, to generate a variety of rules. And that is where you can discern which returns are going to be under which policy. We've also got a variety of settings. There are some language, some display settings, and so on and so forth in there, but we're not going to go too much into that. It's more app targeted. We're still trying to, use this tool in terms of how we're going to support our return policy. Return reasons are quite important to a lot of people, and I only have a few here, but the more that you can generate also will be effective in terms of dealing with those returns for yourself. What you find with a lot of returns management is that if you have one product that keeps coming back for the same reason, the same issues, that you have maybe a bigger issue to address. Understanding the source of your return is really, really effective in how you can prevent that from happening again. Obviously, using our return policy is trying to make us money, but if we can limit the amount of cost that we have to do in terms of return intake, that is a good thing. We want to obviously change the problem, fix the problem, and so we don't have this same product coming back with the same return all the time. So, sometimes that could be an issue of marketing, it could be an issue of design, it could be an issue of manufacturing. All those type of things play into why a product can be returned, right? Poor marketing could lead to misunderstanding of what the product itself does or how it's supposed to work and that kind of thing. If you're having manufacturing issues, obviously a damaged product or a wrong product shipped, that's a really bad experience. Obviously, you want to have the correct product shipped all the time with prompt, friendly communication. That in and of itself can be a huge, huge game changer as it relates to the business plan and how your return policy is going to work. Statuses are also something that we provide here that is a major player in terms of the communication between you and your customer. There's a variety of statuses that I've generated. You can create your own through the app and send it through a test email. In the general settings, you can set up a variety of email settings. So if we want to have a status adjustment, but we don't want that status adjustment to send an email to the customer because it's more of an internal status, you can set that up. However, setting it up so it does have a public status that it sends an email, those are great for keeping your customer in touch, seeking them, being proactive about how you're managing the return and keeping them in the loop about how it's being processed and what stage they're at before they will receive either their refund, their credit, or their replacement product. And that's pretty much the lion's share of what the app does. It really is just a management service for your returns. It gives a customer-friendly widget on the storefront, a variety of email settings to try and keep your store in the loop. Once you install the app, all you really have to do is just import the orders, and that will import your Shopify orders directly into the app, making them searchable through the widget. You can also create new returns here as well. So that is kind of what our app does in a nutshell. And those things, the ability to create communication, having this storefront policy that's visible so that there is no risk, we're lowering the type of risk for the customer, knowing full well that they can purchase on your store. When they receive the product, they'll have 60 days for purchase to return the product itself, and they will have great satisfaction knowing that no matter what they buy, they can always return what they brought in. We can find a way to make this a positive experience for the customer. And in reality, that is going to be how you can turn your return policy into a money-making venture, into a profit-making venture, is because that type of experience for a customer is irreplaceable. And there's nothing quite better than, if something does go wrong, that you have the right answers to solve that issue for that customer. And that's pretty much our return policy, how you can turn that into sales. And this is our tool, how we find that we have our customers using it. It's really good for clear communication, keeps the customers updated, and really is a simple management tool to provide all kinds of options to a potential customer. That's all that I pretty much have for you guys at this point. I guess we would turn it over to the Q&A section of section of the session. So if you have any
one thing I do want to let you guys know is that the app of Return Manager, if you're interested in downloading it, you can download it from the Shopify App Store. We have a 30-day free trial, so you can try it out for free, play around with it with at no risk to yourself. And after that, the app is $19.99 per month. So it's a 30-day return policy. After that, it's $19.99 per month. Also, again, while we're waiting for more questions to come in, I want to let you guys know about our next School of Commerce lesson. It's going to be, it's not on Thursday, it's going to be on not this upcoming Monday, but the next Monday after that. So it's Monday, February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, if that helps out. We're going to be talking to, it's going to be a special lesson. We're going to be talking to Justin Brennan from LuckyTackleBox.com. LuckyTackleBox.com is a subscription-based, it's a subscription box around fishing tackle. We're going to be talking with Justin about how they built $1 million subscription business, how they use our recurring orders app, and strategies they've found were successful in growing their average order value and customer retention. So that is on February 13th, which is a Monday at 1 p.m. So let's get to some of these questions. I'm gonna ask them to Graeme here and get Graeme to answer it back. So the first question we have is, what happens if you create two return groups and both groups have the same products? Or I guess there's some of the same products in both groups.
Generally speaking, that is something you would try to avoid in most cases. In this case, what it would show up is more returnable elements through this section here. So when the customer was trying to initiate their return, there would be a variety of settings here. So when you click, it gives you the actual rules of this particular group and how the details involved with it. So I mean, in general, there's not a lot of reason to have multiple groups encompassing the same product. So I would generally suggest avoiding that. It is fairly avoidable depending on the setup of your Shopify store, use sub-collections, vendor type, etc. And then, but I mean, in the case that it does happen, it would just show up as an alternative rule here in the returnable section.
Perfect. The next question we have is there a report we can export to get the info of which products are returned and why they were returned?
Currently, there is not a an export function. There is an analytics function. I just need to open it up here. So the analytics function is, what might be a little bit generic in terms of what if you preferred to have the exported data in your hands. Right now we don't have that, but this is kind of what we can provide. And this is where you would narrow down specifically with your reasons. You would use the column headers, the details throughout this process. Obviously, I only have a small sample size for my test store. However, you can see here the product name, product number, price, total amount, everything that's in the app that is reasonable information and useful information that can be related to maybe solving the issue as to why. We will hopefully add an export function down the road. It is not currently available, but it is something that has been requested before. So we had opened the discussion about adding that, but right now we do find that a lot of the analytics within the app itself are functional and useful for most people. So we may explore the export possibility, but right now this is what we have, and we do find that with the information here that generally you still get a good chunk of information relative to your returns.
All right, the next question here. Does the application automatically pull in your orders?
No, if you were, it will pull it in if you have installed the app and any future orders that you might add. In terms of adding orders that exist, if you have 1,000 orders already and you just installed the app, that's where you would go into the pending request section of the app itself, and there's an import orders button right in there. And just clicking that will go through a process. It'll give you a little bit of a loading wheel, take a few minutes, but at that point it will input all of your existing orders from Shopify that would not have been there at the point of installation of the app, and then bring those into the app itself for you to search. And what will happen then, I know this question might come up as well, the return groups that you apply afterwards will encompass the products that were already on those orders. So if you are installing the app and you are looking for a returns management system with products that are already purchased, as long as those things exist when creating the return groups, when you create those return groups this next time, those return groups will apply to products from orders in the past that were from Shopify before you actually installed the returns app.
All right, so we have some questions asking about the price of the app. So the app is $19.99 per month. As far as to why we set it the price, not something that I can really explain right now. It's somebody, obviously we have our product managers that handle the price. We feel that if you install the app and you have 30 days to try it out, we feel like you're going to find value in it right away. It's going to save you money by making your returns easier to handle, and the $19.99 cost, I believe it's going to pay for itself basically. Another question, if you have different return policies for different products, how will those different policies be listed on the screen for the customer? Now, I might be able to answer this one in front of Graeme. The return policy itself, when we showed you an example, and Graeme might be able to show you an example of the page where we have the return policy, we actually just wrote that in on the page. So what we did for this example is we created a page on this Shopify store called return policy. We put a bunch of text in there which explains our return policy, and then we put in our little snippet of code to put the order returns manager widget. So you could put in a policy saying 30-day returns for T-shirts, 14 days for hats, a week-long return policy for scarves. So you can put as much of effort into your policy that you want. Returns manager is not going to actually modify your return policy, but it is going to control it. So you can create all those rules. You just have to actually type out your return policy yourself. Next one is there a way from within the process of making a return to submit a question to customer service? This is an interesting question because it's something that I've seen a few stores implement. So we have this page, and there's tons you can customize on this page because we're putting in this widget. Whatever else resides business page is up to you. I've seen some stores put live chat widgets specifically on their return policy page. So when customers are going to submit a return, they can see they have live chat solely on that page. Maybe you don't have time to have live chat on every page, but if you put it just on your return policy page, maybe somebody will reach out to you instead of returning the product, and you'll be able to walk them through, keeping it, or maybe they just don't understand how to use it. So that's one strategy I've seen a few stores implement, and I think it will prevent a lot of returns. If you want to have, an email address there, if you want to have a contact form, that is all possible. It's a Shopify page that you can insert any sort of code into. So you can get as customized as you want, but I do think that's a great question, because I think it's a great idea to implement on your return policy page, is you want to make sure that people who are returning the products know that it's easy to get a hold of you, so that when they're thinking about a product not working for them, their first thought is not, I'm going to return it. The first thought is, I'm going to reach out to the store and see if there's something that can be done to either help me understand it or make the product work for me. Looks like our last question here is, can the reasons title be changed? I guess that is, can you change one of the return reasons later on if you have, for example, damaged product and you want to change it? I'm going to ask Graeme, and he's shaking his head as in yes. So I'm going to take it as a yes, you can modify the return reasons after the point of when you create them. So that's not a problem. Are there any limitations of the app that you guys have found and are working on? That's a new question that just came in. One thing we do get asked about, because it is built into the app, so it's kind of a half feature, is the idea of store credit. So when you're setting up your return policy, you can enable somebody to only get store credit instead of getting their money back. Now, we would love to build this automatically into Returns Manager so that you will get a gift card with a dollar amount on it, and then the customer can only apply that to other purchases. Unfortunately, we can't do that because of the restrictions we have with Shopify's platform. We cannot create store credit, so that unfortunately is something we can't. We'd love to build it in, but we can't currently do it right now. The way we kind of work around that is when if you enable store credit and somebody selects, I want to return it for store credit, what we allow them to do is basically create a new order and apply a 100% discount to it. So this is obviously not perfect, and this is all controlled by the store owner, but if somebody buys a pair of shoes and they want to return it and they're like, okay, I want some store credit, you basically have to put a note in their account saying this person is a $35 store credit, and then when they're creating their next order, apply a $35 price match, refund. It's not perfect, and it's really the only option we had. I hope one day Shopify will improve their API for gift cards, and that we can build it automatically into a feature to do that. But that is one limitation that I wanted to bring up. So a few more questions coming in here. I'll answer them now. You would like to, when somebody's asking, they would like to implement a guarantee reason with some of their products. They like to change the reasons of return for credit, refund, or replacement.
Change the reason for. Can you repeat that for me one time?
Okay, so I think I understand now. So I think the question is, when somebody's returning an item and they select why they wanted to return it, we give them the option to select whether they want a credit return, refund, or replacement. Can that exact wording be changed?
No. Sorry. Not at this point in time. It would be kind of a customization that we could implement. In general, those are always going to be listed as credit, return, replacement. What you could do is ask for reasoning that might help, but in terms of the actual labeling for that is not quite as flexible as we would like. We do have some some language settings in here, mostly focused on display. So there is ways to change some of the display settings. Language settings do offer some flexibility. You can see that there is a number of things on here that could help you out. Just kind of double checking to make sure I didn't miss that. But the replacement, the credit, and the refund. Oh, there it is. There it is. So perfect. Replacement, you can use that. Credit should be a little bit higher. It's all going. Refund is there, and credit, just to make sure, credit is there. So those features are available through the customization through the language settings. As I showed, there's also some display settings. So if you do want those things changed, that would be the place to do it. So for the most part, you can change as much of the app that shows up by default. And also, one thing I should touch on while we're looking at that as well is actually in the email templates that go out. So we do have a variety of email templates to generate terms and conditions. All these things have elements that can be somewhat edited that usually need to be enabled before editing, but with the editing tools, you also have a variety of merge fields, and this is a great tool when you're trying to increase transparency, increase as much detail as possible. And so those language settings and email settings can be very, very helpful in terms of clarifying for the customer.
Perfect. So I think that wraps up all the questions we had. Again, I want to thank you guys for attending our School of Commerce lesson. I want to remind you that, again, February 13th, Monday, we're at 1 o'clock. We're going to be having Justin from Lucky Tackle Box on the show to talk about building a subscription business, increasing average order values, and maintaining, keeping your customer base. We're going to be sending an email about that, so you'll get an email with a registration link if you're interested in attending. And please, if you guys have any topics that you think of that you would think would be a great discussion or lesson for us, please feel free to respond to those emails and let us know. We're always interested in hearing your ideas, and we'd love to work some of your questions into our future lessons. Again, thank you guys for attending, and I look forward to seeing you at the next lesson. Have a great day.